Welcome to the One Lap Heroes podcast, because what the world needs now is another automotive podcast.
Welcome everyone to episode 2 of the One Lap Heroes podcast, which is not really a podcast because it's been released in video form and only on YouTube. So we are bang on the money. Yes, yet.
No.
When we have 3 or 4 or 5 of them, we will upload them in a single go, so that then you can guys go and listen to a few of them.
Gab, the real question is, what is our topic today? And our topic today is, if Miata is not the answer, what is the answer?
Then what is the answer? Yes, I take this opportunity, by the way, to thank every single one of you that took the time to watch, first of all, the first episode, and then also those of you legends that went above and beyond and smashed that like buttons and even commented. And as I promised, we received a few comments that we really liked, and as I said, as I promised, we are hijacking your comments and running with it. This is something a user asked, which is, prices of Miatas are skyrocketing. What would you do instead?
Correct. And if you didn't watch the previous podcast, it was actually all about the 992 GT3, modern cars, current state of reviewing, and a little bit of talk about race cars and how Carrera Cup testing was going. Some very few interesting things. And you're going to see that we're really going to go a little bit, try to include a little bit of everything, you know. We're going to have more news, but we're also going to discuss seat boxes. So don't think that for a minute that we're going to talk only about 992 GT3s and cars that are into the thousands.
But
eventually,
all of us track rats, you could say. Or keen track day drivers and passionate about enthusiasts of driving and whatever. Eventually, the GT3 is pretty much the holy grail. Like, I believe that if we had the money, all of us would own a GT3. Like, literally, if all of us had the money to have it, we would have parked outside here like 5 or 6 GT3s.
Do you believe this?
Because
I tell you something. You do believe it. I do believe it. But I believe that there are plenty of Porsche haters out there. And I also believe that there are plenty of people that they don't know why the GT3 is so special.
Porsche haters, and why is the people that don't know why the GT3 is special are all those people that have never driven one, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And also
see.
we're gonna make a return on this. But in case that people think for some reason that we suddenly become like Porsche people and all the discussion is gonna evolve
I've always been a Porsche guy.
I want to clarify that this is Kostas and Gabriel, and we are both people that have owned an original NA first generation Miata. So don't think for a minute that we are suddenly different people. And today the discussion is not going to be about Porsches. There is not a single one in my list.
I don't know why you keep putting words in my mouth.
There are multiple Porsches in your list.
There are only Porsches in my list.
I think you didn't understand. You didn't got the memo. Hasn't got the memo.
Actually, my list is interesting, especially because of that, because it shows you how
that you only want Porsches.
No, it shows you it's very interesting because it shows you how prices are evolving between cars. Like, there are some cars that are way more expensive than some Porsches, and you would struggle to understand why is that. But anyway,
Gab,
it is
I'm really sorry. My curiosity is getting the better of me. I want to know what's in your list. So I think we're gonna do it like that. One for you, one for me, up until we arrive at number 5. I kept my most special one for number 5, but everything before is not in order.
I do it at random as well. I do it at random.
I recommend you keep something special for the end.
Okay, I want to start with a caveat. Caveat being that we don't really know entirely what you mean when you say what is a cheap car for the track, because the term cheap is completely subjective, and for some of you, cheap is 1,000 euros. And for some other, cheap is 15,000 euros, which is, so it is very difficult to understand this concept. And I give you a golden rule, which is something that I apply to myself, for example, that when I decide to buy something for the track, such as like a track tool, whatever, I buy it ready to burn it the second I bought it, in the sense that I should be able to have a complete total loss on the car the very day I bought it and still not be like, of course I would be mad, but I'm saying I would be mad, but it wouldn't destroy my life, like financially.
This is very funny. Because you know this, but they might not know it. I sit in completely the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm the guy that could, yes, of course, lap something cheap like a Multipla. And yeah, of course, if you destroy the €1,000 car, probably it's not the end of the world. For some people, it might still be. But I'm also the guy that would actually put all his savings and get a loan and get something that I'm going to use on track, with the possibility that if I destroy this car, I'm literally financially destroyed to the extent that I would have a problem like living my life. And I'm one of these guys that doesn't regret this. So I have done this once.
No. Actually, eventually, I was getting there.
Twice.
I was getting there in the sense that eventually is a matter of choices and priorities. But to me, like driving on track is inevitably pushing the limit, which is enjoying the car to its fullest. In the sense that if I would have to worry about how much tire if I would have to worry about how much money the tire would cost, or how much money the brakes would cost, or how much money the car could cost if I hit a curb, or if I damage a wheel, or if I bend a rim, or whatever, this would spoil the experience completely, because for me it's pushing the limit, and I would not be able to do it with this kind of feeling that if I make a small mistake, or rather, like I would not go to the track knowing that I have to restrain myself, because if I don't restrain myself, then the day is too expensive. So like I could never do it. It's like going to the ski trip and then not having the whole day, but only booking 3 hours because because otherwise it gets too expensive. So I would not do it. And this is not something that I would be able to genuinely enjoy. So so this is where my initial observation came, in the sense that I have to be ready to have a total loss on the car every single day I drive it, and this should not change my life one bit. It could be an inconvenience, and it certainly would be annoying, but not more than this. And the choices, my picks are cars that I could more or less, like some a little bit less, but are all cars that I could foresee myself having a total loss on and not destroy my financial balance entirely.
I believe that this is going to be funny because I went the other way around. So I tried to add some sense in the thing, although I'm clearly the one that normally has no sense in his personal choices. So I would actually do exactly what you described, the opposite of what you described. So I would go in depth and I would have like a car that if I total it or if I damage it, I absolutely cannot fix it. This is something that I have done like in my whole life, and even occasionally put me like in trouble, like in serious trouble. So for me, it's not uncommon. I've spent like years or like a full year of not driving my car because one single damage, one destroyed engine stopped me from being able to track it. And I went in depth to buy a car that I really, really, really wanted, knowing very well that I could not fix it, and if something would happen to it, it would be like a huge problem. So I'm a guy that thinks this a bit more, I would say, like emotionally, not in the spur of the moment. So for me, it's the opposite. There is normally like a big grand plan. There is actually zero emotion at all. So in that sense, when I see something online, I never say, okay, I need to buy this, and I need to buy this, and I need to buy this. So we all
they're
have
not
this
like
trend,
they're not like emotional. Like if you have a goal, like if you, for example, if you want a GT3, you fucking scrap the money together and put the money together and get a loan, but then you buy what you want rather than saying I cannot afford it. I buy something that I don't want so much, but that I could do the activity with.
Correct, and it's normally like a big grand plan. You know, like I have like this 10-year plan that I want like something specific that probably makes no sense to no one else except me. But it's normally a plan like that. I have to tell you something that my curiosity is getting the better of me. I want to know which cars you have on your list. So I'm really sorry, but let's go on it. It's clear that there is a lot of meat in this topic.
Yes.
It's clear that we both want to say more things. This is just a first list. If you guys want to see something different, if you want us to discuss about like cheaper cars, if you want us to discuss about like a specific type of cars, like only mid-engine cars or like only rear-wheel drive cars, although my list is like almost 100% rear-wheel drive. If you want a different take, if you want to have like a budget cap, let's say that what would you do up until like a 3,000?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a budget cap.
Feel free to comment below. I cannot wait anymore. I want to hear the car number one in your list.
Car number one in my list. Car number one in my list is the Honda CRX, first generation.
I didn't expect this at all. I didn't expect this at all.
Why Honda CRX? Well, first of all, because I drove one and I was absolutely blown away. Fantastic little car. Yeah, the car is amazing. And I tell you why the car is. So the car is not amazing. Let me rephrase it. So the car is a piece of junk. Objectively,
Okay.
It's not.
That is more accurate with what I had in mind.
The car is not particularly interesting, but the engine is very heavy. I have 1.6. I think it's 1.6 V16, 160 horsepower. 160 horsepower from a 1.6 engine, and the car is. Let me check because I don't know. I think the car from the early 90s, like 91.
Man, this car got presented in the 90s, like 1991, and you have to understand that this engine, doing 160 horsepower in the 90s,
it's
a
amazing.
Crazy number.
Yeah, it's
a crazy number.
The car is super quick. The car is super quick, and
it's modern quick. It's like modern.
It's
car.
modern quick. It's modern fast. It's modern fast. It's less than 900 kilos. No power steering, no aircon as far as I can tell. Potentially,
and
it's
one of the most aerodynamic Honda shapes.
Correct.
So for me, this
super
is
aerodynamic.
A little bit like...
The car is super quick on the straights. It's a fantastic little car. It's easy to work on because it's a car from the 90s, so there's not much going on. It's a fantastic little car, extremely reliable.
An extra thing, the aftermarket, there is.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting there, like parts like you wouldn't believe. You can literally put every single Honda engine you can think of. You can probably squeeze it in, like a K20 CRX.
K20 bolt on. K20 you can do it in a weekend.
Exactly, K20 you can really do it in a weekend.
Sergio's car,
Kit in a weekend.
Ready in a weekend.
So absolutely, this is my first pick, and to give you an idea of the prices. So these cars are also getting a little bit high up, a little bit expensive. But I think you can buy. I mean, the roughest one I have in front of me is 1,500 euros.
Okay, this is actually very cheap.
It's super cheap. It's dirt.
Can I have a look at the
ad? No, you can't. This is dirt cheap. So this is a car that needs some love. But you can buy, let's say that the most expensive ones are like, you can buy good ones for what you need, like for track tools. Because anyway, if you buy a track tool, you would probably look into replacing most of its kinematics and most of its, so like a lot of the stuff, you would have to replace it anyway.
I would buy one of these cars only as a project. So I agree with Gabi in the sense that you would replace almost everything. Buy the worst car that you can, and almost everything is available. So a lot of parts. The bodywork and headlights and taillights of these cars is getting a little bit expensive.
I think you can buy one. Look on Mobile.de. You can find a few with like 6,000 euros, but most are listed at 124 horsepower. I don't know why.
Hey, because this is the D16 engine. It's like the smaller engine. It's like, this is the ZC engine. It's like the double overhead cam but non-VTEC engine. So this is not the engine that we want. This is the common engine here in Europe. The one that you want is the one that has like the VTI engine. Let's say the what would in the US would be SI engine. So in my opinion, you should buy the worst one. You should buy the small engine one. It doesn't really matter, and you should do anyway a swap. This
exactly,
like
because the platform is
like
extremely.
Swap.
The platform is what you're after, and I would get. Actually, I see this even like a small detour. I even see like this discussion about the Miata prices going crazy. Yes, they are going crazy, but people are somehow so scared about a slightly rusty car for no reason. You could track a rusty car for years without a single problem. Like even serious rust, like Sergio's car has serious rust, and yet
You didn't go there.
and
Did
yet
you?
the car will be amazing on track, And
I
it's
agree. I agree.
anyway. These are not these are not collectible cars. These cars
So,
have been done in the
for sure.
millions, and it doesn't matter. Buy the best car you can afford, considering the fact that you have to put the budget in to turn it into
Honda
a proper track
CRX.
car.
So,
CRX
all
with
in all,
10,000 euros budget, buy an Honda CRX, and buy the
All in all-
cheapest one you can, and then work it up.
a very good suggestion. I would say smart suggestion, because basically all these cars can be made to handle exactly the same way, like EK, EG, EF, CRX. All these cars, they can be made to handle exactly the same way. You can sort of exchange almost everything between platforms, and you have the one that is the most aerodynamic. You have the one that is one of the lightest ones, and you have the one that looks a little bit the coolest. So if you were thinking of doing like another EG or another EK, do it in a CRX, and you have like something a bit more special. We have a very
Exactly.
cool CRX in our in the extended Wallap Hero family, so we might feature
angry
the guy
driver.
the guy that's actually not angry at all. Yeah, but we might feature the guy like in the future. But we agree that CRX is a bit like a modern classic and a very cool car.
Cool.
I will jump to my first one in my list.
Yes, your first one. I'm curious because I'm really curious.
Mine is actually is the arch nemesis of every single MX-5 owner. And the first one in my list is actually the third generation MR2. It's a car that, if you know me, I absolutely despise the way
Can
that it
I stop
looks.
you right there? Can I stop you right
Yeah.
there?
For sure.
This can only mean one thing: that the third generation Toyota MR2 gets the Wallap Hero stamp of approval, because it was my choice as well.
It's in your list.
It's
Okay.
on my list as well.
Very cool.
It's in my
Very
list
cool,
as
very
well.
cool.
It's go on, describe it, but
I will do. So this is very funny, because people that know me know that I would never buy an MR2, and I'm actually now like recommending one. I believe it's a very capable platform. I believe in stock form the car is shocking. In Greece, the community is very active, and there's like a bit of a rivalry with the MX-5s as well. But I still remember, like Fred's tracking them in the local track with the stock Toyota pads, with just a suspension and a set of tires. And there's like this urban legend, like about these cars being so fast with no modifications, which actually is absolute bullshit. It's like all the platforms, like you get the one odd car that does this one odd lap time, and then everyone says that it's the right car. So.
Yeah, but
like
it's faster
most
than what?
platforms-
Is it faster than a Peugeot 106? Yes, it's faster.
Exactly,
It's
it
like-
is faster than a Peugeot 106. Exactly, but it's exactly the discussion, and it's the same like an E36. I don't have an E36 in my list. We might talk about the E36 like in a separate episode, full on. But the reason that the E36s have this reputation here at the Nürburgring, is not that because they are particularly fast cars. It is because some people built some very cool cars,
Yeah.
and hence your idea of what an E36 is these modified cars and not the real car. Back to the MR2. I believe that they're very affordable. They are
dirt cheap,
problematic
like
in nature.
3,500 euros.
They are problematic in nature because the transmission and the engines are fragile, and they can fail at any point. This, you might think that is a bad thing, but it actually is a good thing, because you sort of
K20.
want platforms like that. Of course, the perfect track car in an MR2 base, in my head, is of course a K20 car. You might have seen in our channel and in our social media many times. We have many friends that have these cars. We absolutely love them. There is this video in our channel, that there is a MR2 in Castelloli that is sort of completely embarrassing me. The car is capable, like really, really capable. And I'm behind with a V6 car struggling. I would say like similar drivers, similar track
Skill
knowledge.
levels, yeah.
These are, I would say that these cars are very close, and I would still prefer an MX-5. I'm sorry to say this, but since we are having this discussion about alternatives, I believe that the MR2 is a fantastic alternative. I will finish this off by adding let's say my pet peeve, the thing that I don't really like about the MR2 is about how the car is actually on the limit. While an MX-5 at the limit is actually a super easy car, and it gives you a lot of feedback, and it's nice and it's cool to slide when it slides. The MR2 was always in my head, like this edgy car. I have only driven like stock cars back in the day, and I always remember that I didn't like how the MR2 slides, and I didn't really like the dynamics. I would guess that if someone would drive today my MX-5, he would also say, fuck you, this is not friendly at all. What is this friendly MX-5 that you're talking about? And probably the MR2 that I would build would also be like a difficult car. So this whole thing that I just mentioned,
Yeah, but
in the end,
basically,
sort of
basically a
cancels itself.
mid-engine, but a mid-engine car will always be a little bit more edgy than. small caveat. These are not cars that I would buy. So I would never buy an MR2. But these are cars that fit the bill. Like if somebody would come and ask me, hey, what would you suggest me to drive on track? The MR2 would certainly be one that comes on the list because they are extremely affordable. Like most of the stuff that Kostas already said, extremely affordable, mid-engine, which means that with a little bit of work, the car is going to be extremely capable. So it fits the bill as far as I'm concerned. Like it doesn't cost so much. It's relatively light because the weight is a crucial aspect that is often overlooked, and this is also a problem with the E36s because, as Kostas briefly mentioned, yes, a stripped out sim welded E36 with an M3 engine is fantastic, but we're talking about a 70,000 euro car, all said and done. But if you just buy an E36, if you just buy an M3 E36 and you go on track, is a boat.
Actually,
It's
Gab,
too heavy.
This is
So
not a theoretic discussion.
No,
This
it is
not a
actual
theoretic discussion. We bought this 320, the E36 that we had that was completely stock, and it was a horrible car.
Yes.
And we both have driven like a company E36 right-hand drive M3 that supposedly also when I was young it was like in my head like a particularly cool car, and we drove this car and it was actually a piece of shit. So none of us actually liked it.
We probably had it probably was a bad example, but generally the thing is that I think is when I select a car for the track for myself, I look at the weight, because the weight is what spoils all of it, and weight is directly correlated to the running costs, in the sense that a light car is going to be much more efficient, in the sense that you're going to do way more laps. You're going to do a lot less
useless brakes, useless tires. We agree on all.
Weight is absolutely the number one
faster.
thing. And this is why you will see there are a few small light cars. CRX was less than 900 kilos. Now it's the MR2 was my second pick. Relatively sort of the same. It's a little bit the poor man's Lotus, you could even say, like it's mid-engine and the same engine actually as the Toyota engine Lotus, and same gearbox even. So it's quite similar. So I would consider something like this, especially because the prices are very low.
We have some friends that they have like MR2s with 2ZZs, and I think now that you said like the same engine, the Lotus engine, I think they're having like a hard on. The correct engine for this car is still a Honda engine, guys. So don't.
Yeah, actually, Lotus put the wrong engine in the car, so
that is the right engine. Okay, so
I skipped to my third pick then.
Yeah.
Let me check my third pick. My third pick is also something that I would not have thought I would have said. But if you are looking to get a ringer tool rather than simply a track tool, so if you live in Greece and there are only few small tracks, then you need something.
Athens?
Then you need something that is that has to be light and small and nimble, and you can get away with a very low horsepower car and still have a massive amount of fun. But to be honest, if you want to come to the ring and you have something that has less than 150 horsepower, yes, it will be fun in the corners, but it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle. I'm not saying that you're not gonna have fun, but there is a lot of the track that is basically flat out and just waiting for something to happen. It is the nature of the beast. Like if you go to Monza, it's different than if you go to Varano. It's the same thing, If you go to Oschersleben, you don't need the same car that you need at the ring. But if you are looking for something along the lines of an E36 or something like that, but you want something more interesting, my next pick
got my attention.
Is an RX-8.
Oh. And you know what's happening right now?
No.
This gets also our stamp of our approval, because the second car in my list is a
no
fucking
way.
RX-8.
Really?
We love it. Oh,
God,
I
okay.
absolutely love the car.
I don't like how it looks. I don't particularly like the fact that it's a black hole of money, and it's a little bit heavier also than I would like it to be. But I think there is a lot of potential. So I think if you have a little bit more cash to spare, And if you don't mind, so if you are more like a quirky guy that doesn't mind having to work a little bit on the car and not having the most efficient package you could get for the money, but having something that is interesting and something that has a lot of potential, this might be the car for you. I think you can get a track base for save 6-7 grand at the moment, which is
Even
a
less, I would say, huh?
okay, which is a terrific price for the car. And you have a double wishbone car with extremely rigid
Double
chassis,
wishbone.
extremely rigid chassis, very well engineered. A very good, very good base for a track car.
I would say, if you want my opinion, I would say that this is actually one of the best cars Mazda designed. And I find this very funny because we were not very supportive of the model when it was newer. But I still remember
The styling
car
is
brand
shocking,
new.
man.
I find this very funny. So I'll tell you this. I consider the car particularly pretty.
Nah.
So I'm really sorry to say this. I consider this extremely pretty. I would say that the NC is actually much worse looking in my humble opinion.
Yeah, but this is like what you. This is like how you. The NC is the ugliest thing that ever
Man,
graced the world.
between someone seeing me in an MR2 and an RX-8, I take an RX-8 any day. So I want to say that I remember this car again brand new, like in dealerships. I remember the press car that we had like in the magazine that I used to work. I think it's like a particularly cool car, but it was a little bit expensive back in the day. And
It was. The depreciation is shocking on the car.
It was not really making the 240 horsepower that supposedly would be making, so there was a lot of things not going for it. Now that the prices are dropping, and now that we also have the time passing and giving us a bit, how would you say this? A bit of wisdom, I would even try to say.
Okay.
I can actually say that this is one of the best front ends Mazda designed. It is one of these cars that give you a particularly good idea of what your front tires are doing. This is something very tricky to nail in a car, you know, like a steering feel. And the RX-8
really?
has it.
The MD has done it.
In logs. Exactly. And I tell you something more. I would go like an extra step and say that basically people go berserk like about RX-7s and how cool they are. They have these and the prices go up and this and that. And I believe that the RX-8 actually is a much better car. It's a much better platform. Bigger, stronger, cooler. Everything in the RX-8 is better. And of course, it doesn't have an iconic engine. I mean, like it has a Wankel, but it's not a turbo, so it cannot make like the big back power, theoretically. And this is why you can actually find chassis, clean chassis with everything there, with the big brakes, with all the stuff there, you know, like for €3,000. So I want to say something. I know that this is gonna be a bit of a problem because RX-8 owners tend to be like super protective about their Wankel engines. Someone has to get a broken RX-8 and take this LFX swap kit and drop the engine that I have in my MX-5, drop it in an RX-8, and you're gonna have 320 naturally aspirated horsepower from a small aluminum V6 tucked inside the engine bay of your car, and it's gonna be reliable. I have like 35,000 track kilometers in my car, 3 years, not a single issue. You need this in an RX-8, and you don't have the bearing problems that an MX-5 has, and you don't have the brake problems that an MX-5 has, and you don't have the flimsy chassis that the MX-5 has, and you don't have the rust problems that an MX-5 has.
Yeah.
So of course, when you have like a stock power RX-8 and you come on track and you get raped by everything else, of course you feel bad. But swap a cool engine and you have a fantastic track car, and you can actually do it because there is still no stupid tax, you know, because the car is not considered cool. You can still do it on a budget. And for me, every single of these cars that doesn't come with the extra tax, you know, of course, you want an NSX these days, you have to pay like 3 times when it was 3 years before. So I would personally, I love the NSX. There is probably like one sitting like up there, you know, like so it's one of my favorite cars. I absolutely fucking love it. I would never pay NSX money for an NSX, never in my life. If I had the money here, I would never pay this money. And Supras are going there, NFDs are going there, and MX-5s are getting expensive, which is why we made this whole video. So don't pay the idiot tax. Try to find cars that are cool.
Exactly, this is the whole thing about this.
You are gonna make your car cool. Don't try to buy something that is already considered cool, so you can actually blend in and have the right car. So we're gonna talk about the NSX. For me, it's one of these cars that gives me like huge pain because I absolutely love it to bits. But if you buy an NSX today, you are a fucking moron. I say it like clearly. People are gonna be, of course, angry with us.
No, but
I will
it's
come back
it's
and,
a matter of
I will come
it's a
and,
matter that
defend
the
the
price. No, the thing is that the price it's too high in the sense that at this price level you are clearly overpaying for what you're getting. But this is the same for an NA. If you pay 15 grand
10,000
for an
euro.
NA,
15
you are
grand for a
just
clean one. You're stupid.
you are stupid because with 15 grand you buy a Lotus S1 for 15 grand almost. So you have to be really stupid in your head to buy an NA. But beside this, so we have two cars already that we agree upon, and these are all a relatively low budget car. I think we still are like between 6,000, whatever, 7,000, you can get it. And I actually disagree with the fact that you have to swap the engine in the sense that if you are okay with being slow on the straight, which is something that inevitably will happen, you can.
And you're not gonna be that slow, huh? It's still double the power than
exactly
like the banana.
So it is still gonna be like it's still gonna move at a relatively good rate of pace.
We agree.
But it's of course it's not gonna blow your mind. It's also because there is very little torque. But the engine is cool, as long as it runs. And the car is really fantastic in the corners. So it's yes, this is my third pick. What's your next one?
So yeah, guys in Greece, these cars are particularly cheap in Greece and there is no rust and the interiors are still clean and nice. Guys in Greece that you are searching for a cool track car, go get those RX-8s. They're out there, they're cheap. Buy a problematic one, go to our man Xenophodas, fix that engine and enjoy the car for a long time. That is that. Third car, and I think this is gonna be a little bit funny. This is a car that here in Europe is still a little bit expensive, but I cannot believe how cheap it is in the US. So third car is again a car that I used to hate when it was new. It's the Nissan 350Z.
My God, never. Never.
I want to arrive somewhere.
Never.
So,
this does not get the stamp of approval.
I like that we disagree. I will arrive to my point quickly so we can actually move down the list. I spent quite a big amount of my childhood, like automotive childhood, in low-powered cars with no displacement. And one of the things that I took great pride was like driving a slow car fast. I have to tell you that unfortunately this is one of the slight misconceptions on car culture. Driving a car that has displacement and driving a car that has power is also very fun. And no one is telling you that you should drive the fast car slow. So fast car fast.
You can actually drive a fast car fast.
Fast car fast, even cooler. So especially because I grew up around cars with small displacement, all these cars that we discussed. I kind of missed this push, like especially in my formative years. And the more I grow older, I realize that displacement is a very good thing. Having a big unstressed engine is a very good thing. So I believe that the engine in the 350Z, while not really fantastic, it's still a decent amount of power. There is behind it a very good manual transmission, the CD09s, they're fucking cool transmissions. And there is a decent diff in the back. So it's not that common. Actually, a good friend of us, they're swapping these diffs in S2000s, and people are using the transmissions for 2JZ swaps. So this actually tells you clearly that this is a car overbuilt with all the quality parts. The big problem is that this car is very heavy, and in stock form, the suspension sucks. So be the smart guy, buy it, strip it, put a good suspension, not even an expensive one, like BC Racing, whatever, like something affordable. If you want to be cool, go for the proper stuff. Address the geometry issues, and you are gonna have a fantastic car. And it's also a very car that's very cool on the limit. This is why you will see a lot of them being used like as drift missiles. They are very cool cars. They deserve a second chance now that they go to these price levels. Like people. Like, really
what do you mean expensive?
Them.
What do you mean expensive? Like, what is expensive?
So what I mean with expensive is that here, basically in Europe, like the cheapest 350Z you can find in Germany is still 8,000-9,000 euro. And
it is cheap, though.
I had like in my bookmarks, I had like a crashed 370Z Nismo for 14,000 euro, which for me sounds like a fantastic opportunity. The 370Z is the one that you want, but
crashed
still.
How hard is it crashed? Okay, hard. Okay.
You will notice a pattern because the next car that I have in my list is also more expensive than I would normally do, But I believe that if you find like the right example, and especially like slightly crust is okay for me, you know. So.
But to be honest, this is the way to buy. This is the way I would buy. Also, like if I would have to buy a track car only for track, or very light dual purpose, in the sense that I would drive to the track and that's it. I wouldn't mind buying something that is being crashed, as long as it's straight and the alignment comes back to normal. What's the problem? I mean, race cars get crashed on the regular, so like race cars that I race regularly have been crashed multiple times. And what's the point? I mean, what's the
Soccer,
problem? It's no problem.
race cars raced by Gabriel have been crashed multiple times.
No, not by me, not by me,
Unbelievable.
not by me. But I mean,
Also
some
by
cars
you.
are total losses, but the vast majority of them they get repaired.
They
Cars
rebuild,
actually,
of course.
cars get burnt and they get rebuilt.
For sure.
I don't get all this sensitivity towards cars that have been damaged. I mean, as soon as if you get it, if you can buy it, check what's been damaged beforehand. But if the chassis, even if the chassis is slightly damaged, what's the matter? Everything can be fixed.
Gab, let's move to the next one. For me, 350Z, big displacement engine, reliable parts, good platform, rear-wheel drive, honest manual rear-wheel drive car. Remove the weight, do the upgrades, have a fucking cool car. And again, they're gonna get cheaper. Huh? People don't like these cars. People absolutely don't like these cars.
I don't, for example. I would not buy it, for example. But I would buy the next car. It is a little bit on the higher end of the spectrum, price-wise, I would say. This is, I think, is the car that I would be. This is a car that I would be now comfortable to use on track, but I would be seriously pissed if I would damage it. But as I said, it would
I have a
still
feeling
not
it's gonna be
ruin-
completely out of the spirit of the list. Continue.
No. It would not ruin me financially totally. And it's an Opel Speedster.
Okay.
It's
Can
an
I
Opel
ask you
Speedster.
something?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but knowing that you are a guy that actually sold an immaculate Lotus Elise S1
Yes.
for a quite low price. Good, you didn't lose money, but for a
No,
quite
why?
low price.
It was the price that the car could go away with when I sold it.
How the fuck you would end up being happy in an Opel Speedster?
Well, because the Opel Speedster. So if you want something, let me put it this way: if this was a list of the cars that I would buy to put in a garage and go and check and never drive them, I would buy a Lotus Elise S1.
Okay.
Because it's much prettier. It has like it is a sort of a it is something that will never be done in this car will never exist again.
Absolutely.
This kind of car. The Opel Speedster, on the other hand, basically shares the vast majority. So the chassis is the same. So the aluminium chassis is the bonded chassis is the same. The geometry.
The engine is better.
The geometry in the front is exactly the same because it's connected to the frame, to the
Same
chassis.
subframes, same arms. Yeah, of course.
The rear subframe, it's different. So in the front there is no subframe. In the front there is the chassis, and in the rear there is a bolt-on subframe, which is slightly different than the Lotus Elise Exige S2, which was built at the same time. And it has a little bit longer wheelbase, but these are irrelevant points. The car has always been cheaper than the Lotuses, also because there are some, they cut some corners in the sense that the pedals are not aluminium pedals like the Lotuses, and a few small bits like
Small
this,
things.
which for an enthusiast that wants something specific. So if you want a Lotus, you cannot buy a Opel Speedster because it is effectively the same car, but these are the details. Like the devil is in the details, as they say. So it is not the same car. It is not the same car. But if you want to buy something that will be effective on a racetrack, you might be better off. Actually, I know for a fact that you are better off starting from an Opel Speedster platform because it has bigger brakes. I think it has a standard bigger brakes. It has bigger wheels already as standard, which eventually you want to upgrade to. It is a much better engine, especially if you go for the turbo. The car can be with lightly tuned to very high level of powers, like above 300 horsepower. Which is impossible to do on an S1 Lotus unless you swap the engine out for something else. Actually, it's impossible to do on an S2 Lotus as well unless you swap the engine. These are power levels that are similar to the V6 Exige for a fraction of a price. I think they normally aspirated the 2.2 are I think 16,000. 16,000, which is still okay. It is still something that I would consider because the car is quick. The car is 150 horsepower, I think, or something rather. I don't know exactly what the 2.2 is doing. But even with that engine, you can still have a massive amount of fun for a very, very low running cost because the car is extremely light. The steering wheel is absolutely fantastic. Like the steering feel, I mean, is absolutely fantastic. The car is amazing. And
I agree with you. I agree.
And there is no Lotus tax. So you
exactly.
get like S2, a good S2 level of performance. The S2s are 25, 26, 27, and you get it for like 10 grand less. And for the same price of an S2, you get the turbo. So if you can splash all the way to a turbo, then by all means do it. You should. That is the car that you really want, but it is above 20 grand, so it's an expensive car to buy. But the 2.2 NA, it's
still fun, yeah.
It is 80% of what the turbo is. I can promise you will never feel like it's slow car, but and it's fantastic and it's super easy to work on. It's arguably one of my dream track cars is a Lotus chassis based car, which can be whatever it can be. So like my personal favorite is the S1 Exige, but it can be whatever it is, and it's a fantastic platform. It's a bit expensive, but that's my pick.
So are you telling me that one day we're actually gonna build this 600 horsepower Exige S1 looking thing that we're gonna have now the paddle shift transmission engine or something like that, or like K20 with a sequential or something?
We swap the V10 from the M5. No, but
actually it's a cool shot, but no.
But when these YouTube or when these One Lap Heroes podcasts will explode and get hundreds of thousands of listeners, then we will do it.
We build up dream cars.
If this channel ever puts me in a position that I can do it, I will do it.
I love this.
So this is my pick. What's your pick? What's your next pick?
I absolutely like it. I just want to say also, I want to connect this a little bit with our earlier suggestion, the MR2. If you're about to sink in like 20 grand in your MR2 on top of what you paid on the MR2.
Very good point, my friend.
Keep this in the back of your mind. You might be doing the wrong thing. And
20 grand on an MR2, you have an MR2 where you spend 20 grand, and it's never gonna drive like a Speedster, no matter what.
Exactly. It might be faster than a Speedster in the ideal track with the specific tires. If the Speedster has other tires and is driven by a lesser driver and this and that, and in your head you might overtake a few of these things, like we do with the MX-5s, and you might say, "Fuck, fantastic! My MR2 is the best." Absolutely not. And Gab very nicely said, if you can't go for the turbo, because this is, at the end of the day, it's all about driving experience. I will not speak more about this here because my last pick is very related to this. My fourth pick, the one to last, is actually a little bit similar in principle with your pick. It is something that's a bit of a higher budget. It is something that you might think that is strange coming from me.
Okay.
I really didn't want to have like a Porsche on the list, but it is the Boxster 3.2 S, first generation. I would say 2000.
Stop!
2003.
This is another car. You spoiled my last pick, but
no, really? You have a Boxster there?
Yes. My last pick was a 986 Boxster S.
So this is a car that I have researched heavily. This is a car that I've almost bought twice. So,
but why do you say they are expensive? They are dirt cheap.
Actually, they are not. They are not that cheap. So this is a platform that I know very well, and I promise to you that if you find this interesting, we might do like an episode only speaking on this like budget
On the
Porsche.
Boxster.
No, only on the Boxster, and specifically on the 986 Boxster, because like the not cool one, and in my humble opinion, is also like the cool one. Short story. These engines, all the family of engines, M96, M97, unfortunately, are bad engines. I know that we're very lucky because we don't really have like Porsche people here, like in this channel, so probably they're not gonna really comment. Porsche people will try to convince you that this is not this, and if you treat them nicely, everything's gonna be good. Track people will tell you that these engines go like grenades, like you might have the right one, you might not have the right one. Maybe it worked 10 years without the problems. Then you go on track, it explodes. And most people know the IMS issue, but it's just one of them. They have the air oil separator issue, and they have generally oiling issues. And I'm very keen to discuss this like in detail if you find this technical part of this conversation interesting. It has to do with the oil pickup points and how they went from the dry sump engines to the wet sump engines, and how actually Porsche themselves fixed it in the next generation of cars. However, because these engines are everywhere, so we're talking about 986, 987, Carreras, 911s, and 996 and 997s, and it's on the early Boxsters and the Caymans. So basically all this family of engines carry the same problems. Even the 3.2, the 3.4s, the 3.6s, all of them have this problem. And it's not as small as people would make you think. So when you buy one of these cars, it is expensive because if and when the engine rebuild comes, which might come, it's not a cheap one. And unfortunately, that oiling issue is one that is not fixed with your rebuild. So although you will have like the IMS fix and this and that, you might still have a bit of like an engine that might go. And when we are talking about like 10 or 15,000 euro engines, actually engines that cost a little bit more than the car, this is a bit of a problem. Again, if you find this interesting, I know that now we're going a bit like in the geeky territory of things. So if you find this interesting, I'm very happy to come back and discuss like details and parts and solutions and stuff. So, but for now, I will say that the Boxster is a fantastic car. Gab knows that I'm a bit of a fan. I hate how it looks. It's very funny because it's a little
Actually,
bit like
I think it's growing on me a little bit.
and exactly. And now slowly, the early model is coming back a little bit. If people don't follow this, we have said this before. I practically hate soft top cars, and I know that I have one. I know this sounds stupid.
You don't actually, because it's a hard top.
Exactly. So for me, like soft tops are like it's something that aesthetically I cannot live with, and it's like frustration for no reason, noise, mechanical complication, leaks, all things I don't like. However, I believe that the first generation Boxster is a shape that actually is gonna be like a modern classic. Porsche is smart. It's already on their Porsche Classic catalog, and that means that there are going to be parts for this car forever. And finally, for the track rats, for the people that they just won't care about speed, I want to tell you that the whole architecture between the platforms is shared. So basically, that 996 GT3 front end that people speak about, and of course it's like a 40 or 50 or 60,000 euro car, you can build exactly that front end in your Boxster, and because the weight balance is actually even a little bit better. You can actually go one step forward and have like even a better car, assuming that you want to collect all the right parts, which is actually cheaper than you might think. So keep this in the back of your brain. That is that for me. I actually want to hear also how you ended up having it there, but I think that the 986 Boxster is a fantastic car. Case study: try to find a car that has a little bit of crash damage. So I personally had again in my bookmarks one for 8,000 euro. Like 986, low mileage, below 100,000 kilometers. Everything sort of ticked, and it had accident damage in a couple of different places. It's a car that I would personally change a bumper and a headlight and track it like that with the damage. Maybe you want to do it differently. But it's a cool, smart car. And again, a car that can be improved, and a car that can be swapped, and a lot of cool things. Gab, you, take it. Sorry, I was speaking actually for a very, very long time.
No worries. I don't know what to add, really. You said everything. I think... I think let me put it this way. I believe this. I'm being genuine about it. I'm not being cocky about it, but I'm being genuine in the sense that I believe that if we buy sight unseen two Boxsters, I would just put fuel in it and drive it until it grenades, which means that the car will probably last more than I would be keen on driving it. I would probably be able to sell it before it grenades because I don't care. It's the same exact thing that we did to the Ringrana because these are old cars. So remember, you don't touch old cars unless you absolutely need to, because when removing one bolt takes all the car apart. So don't touch it unless you absolutely need to. So what I would do, buy the Boxster, slam it on coilovers, put big semi-slicks on it, drive the hell out of the car. And I would guarantee you that the car is really, really fast, and it is really, really fun to drive. It's an amazing car.
Very cool gearbox, by the way, guys.
Absolutely.
And it's very funny
fantastic gearing
because it's
also.
an Audi gearbox. But
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
But it's a very, very cool car, and it would still. This is something that I am not completely. Although I am almost entirely free from the marketing machine as far as the brand is concerned, it is still cool to be in a Porsche, and this is something that I find cool a little bit.
You are turning into a Porsche guy. I'm just telling you because there is like 2 podcasts in a row.
I am a Porsche guy, but
Okay.
so this is something that I would buy. But
Okay, and what I would do, because I have a feeling that you would arrive somewhere.
No, hold on. But I can guarantee you that if, like, maybe not you, but if Sergio would buy a sight unseen Boxster, he would be in a nightmare without end, because he would take it apart completely, and he would worry about everything, and the car would never work. So I can guarantee you, you cannot know when the IMS goes.
IMS is gonna
You cannot know how and when the oiling issue is. So if you buy it, just take it out of your head, out of your mind, buy it and drive it, because these are not issues that you can preemptively avoid or you can preemptively sort of fix. So there are cars with the original IMS that have driven hundreds of thousands of miles, and there are cars that with the car literally in front in the production line that have been going through IMSs and oiling issues and whatever. So it's
Absolutely
a completely
right.
random thing. It's a completely random thing. Unfortunately, the engine is a little bit junk on this aspect. But as long as you know what you're going into, which is potentially you have to rebuild the engine. Potentially you have to do it. But there are so many cars around and there are so many engines around that it's not probably gonna break your bank. I mean, if you're walking into a Porsche anyway, you must be ready to
spend some money, of course.
to spend some money on it. And it's not the end of the world, because if it happens, you can still sell the car as a rolling chassis. You can still it's not a total loss. And but I would not worry too much. I think the numbers of failures are overblown, and I think it is not a guarantee. Like, because if you like listening to Kostas, you would imagine that they are pretty much guaranteed for this to happen. But he thinks that, but in reality, remember that the noise of a problem is 10 times louder or 100 times louder than the silence of a working car. So basically, every car, if you go on a forum and say problem with this car, you don't buy any car, because every single car is junk. But pretty much the same thing is with everything, is because if my car has no problem, I don't go around and say, my car works.
It's actually like NCs. Actually, if you know all the cars, they are like this. So NCs, the engine.
And these, the gearbox of the ND.
And these, the gearbox.
Whatever.
Early MX-5s, like my car, they had like the small crank. Turbo MX-5s, all of them problems, different ones, all of them real. 991 GT3s that we mentioned them many times as the benchmark.
Absolutely, every single car, single car.
Mark 1 Cayman GT4s, that's one of my personal.
But even the
cars.
997, even the 997, even the 997 GT3 RS with the single mass flywheel. And,
not only this. People consider
missing the damper, driving on the highway, total engine loss.
Exactly.
This is, of course, this is stuff that happens, but
it's considered like a bulletproof thing. But for example, 997 GT3s and turbos and 996s, they have the different engine. So the reliable one has this problem in the water collars. That if you don't
they pop out.
They might actually pop out and leak
yes.
coolant. So we have actually seen like cars destroyed.
Yeah, it happens. Actually, this is.
So
This is, but you don't get.
K20s, one of the most reliable engines, fantastic, this and that. They have their own set of problems. The gearboxes that go with them, set of problems. MR2
Absolutely.
engines, problems.
Don't worry
SR20s
about
in
the
the
problems.
Nissans, problems.
Know that there are engines. Know that there are problems in whatever you buy, but don't get scared. I mean, if you have the budget, buy a cheap Boxster, put proper set of coilovers on it, put proper set of tires on it, drive it until it
Drive
explodes.
the wheels of it.
Drive it until it explodes. It can happen the day you buy it, but it can also happen 20 years after you bought it. So don't worry about it. So don't worry because it is literally with everything you buy is the same. It's just the perception. So like we have a perception of this car being extremely unreliable, but it's just a perception. You can buy a car new from the dealer. And of course you would say, yeah, but I have the warranty. Okay, but you can buy whatever used car for a track use you buy can be the same. You buy it and the thing explodes the next day. What can you do? It's part of the game.
My Fiat Multipla, a car traditionally Fiat with a 1.4 engine, 1.6 engine.
They're in banana, man.
They're in banana.
They're in banana. 180,000 kilometers. This is a real life example. Ring Banana, 180,000 kilometers. We did nothing to it. We drove it on the ring. The car never skipped a beat. Sergio bought a car in arguably better conditions to begin with. He started working on it and he went through head gasket and this and that and broke and down and
everything he
snapping,
touched.
Everything
he touched.
Everything he touched, it broke.
He did the brakes. There was a problem with the brakes. He did the radiator and the gasket. Had a problem with the head gasket. So literally almost every single thing he touched around the engine ended up into a problem. And this is not a joke. And unfortunately, this is also exactly what I told him when he did his K20 swap. I said, you have a working engine that has been in one of our friends' cars. And we have driven that engine. We know that it's strong and healthy. Drop it in. Troubleshoot the swap, drive the car around, and then you go crazy. Then you put the cams, and then you try to fuck everything else around us. And he didn't do it, and almost everything he touched created an issue.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
but this is how it works. Anyway, but I have, this is it for the Boxster, but I have like a replacement.
A backup. Okay.
I have a backup plan.
You have
it's another
5 plus
Porsche.
1. Go.
And it's another Porsche.
Okay.
It's another Porsche. It is a 944 S2. Or
the old ones,
if you really have the budget and you can go all the way to the turbo, then turbo.
For me, turbo.
Turbo. Okay, the problem with the turbo, actually, we are talking about the same amount of money, roughly, as the Speedster. Speedster turbo speed. Around 20 grand, you can buy a very, very good S2. And okay, a little bit above, like 22, 23, you start getting into the turbos. These cars are bulletproof. These cars, you drive them for 500,000 kilometers, you don't even wash them. And these cars just run and run and run and run and run. It's interesting for several things. For me, Gabriele Piana, it's interesting for several things. One is old, which means there is a lot of events that I could do with it. And second, because this is, track car is, I have a wider idea of what a track car is, like a not simple track day. But with a car like a 944, I would go and do historic racing here, and I would do a snow event over there. And the car is brilliant because it's a perfect balance weight distribution. It's a really, really cool car. I think it looks awesome. It's a little bit 80s, like the styling, but I dig it. And this is one car I would definitely own in my life at some point. A 944.
You heard it here first.
I will own a 944, and it's a cool looking car. It works. It just works. If you want something similar,
is the next OLHtp Hero Project car?
No. If you are really on a budget, you can buy the small brother, which is a 924.
No.
This is not a track car. But that is not a track car. This is not a track car.
944.
944.
Or ideally turbo.
944. Ideally, what I would go for, since I'm not so keen with driving cars with no ABS, what I would go for is a 944 S2 ABS. Or the turbo. Actually, I would go above
You
and
would go
beyond.
for
I
the
would buy the
turbo.
turbo.
I know
I
you.
would
I
buy the
know.
turbo.
Yeah,
I
no,
would buy
yeah,
the
no,
turbo.
yeah, no.
A bad turbo, like a 300,000 kilometers turbo. I would probably buy.
Because whatever
it's
is
gonna
to
be
be done
perfect.
with this car has been done, and
Right.
it's working. So
This is a funny thing. Don't buy low mileage cars. I don't understand why people buy low mileage old cars. This is actually a recipe for disaster. Buy the car with the most amount of kilometers, especially if you're gonna drive it on track. Buy the car with the most amount
very
of
good
kilometers
point.
on it.
With the last point. So my last car on the list is like the Joker, the last one that I kept.
I
will
can't
tell
wait
you.
because I don't know. I don't know what it
So-
could be. Like it could be an S2000. I don't know.
Exactly. I will tell you. I will
Which-
tell you what it is. Funny.
The
I was sure.
Can I say something? The S2000 is not in my list because I don't think it's a good buy price wise. In the sense that
It-
now to get your hands on one, you have to
They're
give
getting
out
a bit
at
expensive.
least 19, 18, something like this for a stock car. Then
I
you
will
have
tell
to
you
pay
something.
another $5,000 to make it
The
track
way you
ready.
want.
This is like we are approaching like 25, 26, 27 grand for an S2000 on track, and it is an underwhelming experience for that price. It's gonna be an underwhelming experience because the engine is not particularly strong, the car is not
No.
particularly fast, so it's I would
It's a
buy
problem.
a lot. I would buy a Speedster turbo like 10 times before I get to an S2000. You know what I mean? Like, this is why it's not on the list.
I agree. I thought that you would have it on your list because I think sometimes you have like a bigger soft spot on the car than me. I consider it as a very cool car, and for
It
sure
is. It is. Look, it is.
It is actually
I-
cooler than some of the cars in our lists.
It is.
However,
It is absolutely. It's way cooler, but I think it's like a little bit the NSX kind of deal.
exactly.
Again.
I'm not
Like
keen. I'm
it's-
not keen on the fucking
the
on
price
the fanboy
performance
tax.
exactly the price performance because there is a serious issue here in the sense that when the stock car prices are raising so much, then you cannot really conceive modifying one heavily. Like you would you really ruin
It makes
a
less
car
sense.
that
It
is
makes
going-
less sense. You
Correct.
can do it, but it makes less sense.
But no, it makes like sense, like because financially this is more adventurous, like because you are putting on the line a bigger amount of money. Like with the Speedster, you don't ruin it. You get a Speedster turbo, you change the tires, you put the 4 coilovers, you're done. You do nothing.
Can I build on this? So
Absolutely.
It's even worse. It's even worse because you start with a 20,000 euro S2000 that is clean because you don't want to start with the one that is bastardized and has been touched and crashed and this and that. So you start with a clean one, and then you say I will only spend 10,000 euro, and then before you know it, you have like a 50,000 euro S2000.
Yeah.
You know these guys. I know these guys. They are our friends. They have done it, and it's not enough. And because, of course, you still have in the center of this build an engine that doesn't do a lot of power, and because you don't leave like the key feature of this car is that engine at that form. You don't leave it alone. You want to supercharge it, turbocharge it, do something, make more power, whatever. And every single of these things you do, it sort of takes away a little bit of the value of the car
Spirit, yeah.
as an experience, and it costs you more money. And then suddenly you find
And it
yourself
ruins the base money because it
But
ruins
exactly,
the value
you cannot
of
get
the
the
thing.
money back.
You cannot get the money back.
But you are now also in a new price bracket. So it's exactly the same like I did with my MX-5. I never would recommend to someone do what I did to my MX-5, except if he wanted to have like the ultimate version of the platform. So if you are like in love with your first generation MX-5 and you want to experience the ultimate version of that, then it makes sense to do what I did. For any other reason, you shouldn't do it, including going fast. Because
is
with
actually
the
a very
money
good
that I
point.
put in my MX-5, I could have a different platform that would be faster.
You could have a Cayman. It's a very good point because remember, it's a really good point, and this we discussed because we were saying you buy an MX-5 NA because you want to go on track and you want to go on track on the cheap, in a sense that you want to go on track many times, like every other weekend. You're on track, you're having fun with your mates, everything is awesome, everything is great. Then you say, I do this to the car, and then you say, I do this to the car, and then this and this and that and this and that and this and that, and then you swap the engine, and the car suddenly has 250, 300 horsepower, and you say, oh, now I need 235 with wide tires. Oh, I need 16 inches disc. Oh, I need a big brake kit. And the car now, it costs like a Cayman
Money.
to drive on car. To drive
And
on track, track it costs like a Cayman. So
And it's
the
even
whole
worse,
reason,
bec-
the whole
because
point
it
of
doesn't
you
have the
buying a
Cayman.
cheap car, the whole
It doesn't
point,
have the Cayman bearings, and doesn't have this, and doesn't have that.
right. The whole point of buying the cheap car so that you could track it often, it's defeated because now your cheap car is still a cheap car in the sense that everything on it is cheap. The running costs are high because it's almost like an expensive car. So you have something that has very little value. So something you have wasted a lot of money on, that if you want to drive it, costs a lot of money to do it. And you have no choice but looking in your mirror and said, what?
Did I do this right?
Correct.
Would I do it again?
And the answer is yes, if you wanted this. But if you just lose focus, so if you want to drive on the track often and a lot, keep it as close to stock as it can be. The engineers that built it, they knew what they were doing. So
And
the bearing is sized for this power level.
For this amount of tire, this power level, yeah, exactly. And this list is exactly made like that. This list is all the suggestions that we gave you is basically cars that could be basis of tuning, but we kind of recommend them like in sort of stock form or like slightly modified form. And the moment you go crazy in any of these platforms, which all of them can
Kostas,
do, because we
look,
are similar.
I talk about my list. The Speedster, I would do nothing but tires and shocks. Cayman, I would exactly do the same. Tires, shock, and nothing else, and put a different seat. Okay. The MR2, okay, the MR2 needs a little bit of work. The CRX also needs a little bit of work. But these are cheaper cars to begin with. It doesn't matter so much, you know. But the expensive, like the more expensive thing, and this is the thing, like you look at the price now and say, but one car is 18,000 and the CRX is 5 or 6.
They're all 20,000 euro cars, by the way.
They are all 25,000 euro cars. So, and your 2000 euros MX-5 NA, it will be a 15-20 grand car by the time you're finished with it.
Man, every single of the MX-5s that I know, in one way or another, they start as 1,000 euro cars, they end up 5,000 euro cars, and their owners, they still consider them 1,000 euro cars.
Yeah, but they are not.
There, I feel you, they are not. So let's finish this off with the last thing. It connects with everything that we sort of covered before. My last car, the joker on my list, is this. It is whatever car you actually have an emotional connection. So all these cars that we mentioned here, especially from my side, I have no particular emotional connection. I don't like especially the shapes. They are like bland, in my humble opinion. I can justify how they look. So the RX-8, for what it is, it's cool. The Boxster, it's become a little bit like a modern classic. I can justify it, but I don't like them, like per se. And they are just like tools. There is one thing that I want to bring back to you that is like the core of this hobby. There are a couple of cars. So
why
like
did
if
you
see
start
behind me here? There is like a 911 somewhere there, like in a corner, if you can see it. So there are a couple of shapes, you know, that got you started exactly, that got you excited about cars in the beginning. And for everyone, it's different. It could be like a quirky car. It could be like a Porsche 914. It could be your uncle. No, your uncle might have had like an Impreza. Okay, and you went in it, and it's like turbo, and you said like, this is fantastic. It might be that you saw the S2000 on a magazine, you know, and you were in school, like our man Cantono. You were in school, you saw it there on the magazine. That dream car from Honda, and it's amazing. It can be European. It can be a
Porsche 911.
Exactly. So whatever that is, it can be an MG, a Triumph, whatever. For every single person, this is completely different. But there is something that sparked in you, and there's like a car shape that gets you like fucking going, you know. And for me, that is like a classic 911 and a cool 911, a long hood 911. What do they call like an F series? Okay. So that for me is like a very special shape. And if that is something that you really, 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 really want in your life, and even if it's expensive, and even if it's a bad car, you kind of want it. For someone, it might be like our MX-5s. It could be like a Lotus Elise one. It doesn't really matter. Don't think at all. Don't try to think about what other people consider cool. Try to think about what you consider cool. Okay,
right.
Find that car and find a way to make it do things that it doesn't want to do. Okay. And then that suddenly cancels everything that we talked about up until to this point, and it has this car making a point. So I want to speak specifically with examples, so you don't think that this is like a sort of like a an idea. I'm speaking about something that is like completely not tangible. For me, this is something very specific. My V6 MX-5 was built because I wanted to do the one lap Europe trip. And I wanted the car to be at a level that would offer me to this trip the reliability to go from point to point and the performance in every single point. So it arrived to this level because it was always sort of evolving to arrive there. And the moment it did that one lap Europe trip, okay, the car was not finished and it's never going to be finished. But the moment it did this trip, it actually justified its whole existence and the reason that I have been building it. And the same goes with that old 911 that we mentioned. I have like a very specific thing in my mind, and when it happens, it's like that. And it makes zero sense, but it justifies that experience.
It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to
absolutely.
Make sense.
It might be that you want to do the Balkan Express and you buy this car and you just do like a big 7,000 kilometer trip. It might be that you want to travel from Portugal to the Ring. It might be that you want to do whatever kind of trip or activity you want to do. You might want to see like a strange engine in that specific car. So it doesn't matter what is the activity, okay? But if that shape speaks to you and you know kind of what direction you want to go and you start going into that build and you get that car because you want to do this, everything that we said before do not matter. So try to think deep inside what got you going. Try to get one of these cars. For me, my biggest fear is that what we're experiencing now might be like the last golden years of the cars as we know them. And
No.
I'm not afraid. No, I'm not afraid of electric cars coming and taking our cars away. No, I'm afraid that there's the way that we use these cars is going to change. And a lot of the things that we consider a given, modifying them, tracking them the way that we do, daily driving your track cars, all these things might change a little bit. So I would like to experience as much of this old type of cars, as much as I can, as quickly as I can, before it is too late. And too late, it doesn't need the Euro emissions to come and take our cars away from us, or self-driving cars to come and take our cars away from us. It might be that you are like 30 and something happens, and at 40 you cannot do it. You are 20 and then in your 35 you have like a family. It might be like you are 50 and then at 60 you cannot anymore do it for other reasons. It might be any of these things. So I believe that if you have like a dream, and you have like a car that you are very passionate about and you find yourself looking at it and looking at it again and having like a folder in your computer with images of that car, whatever that is, and if all your friends tell you that it's stupid, you should ignore everyone and do that build, and that could be your car, and it should not be a Miata, because I cannot believe that for all these people out there, an MX-5 was this car that they saw it and they said like, this is absolutely
for almost
the car.
Nobody.
Fall in love and whatnot.
Almost
so
for no one is there.
Ignore peer pressure, ignore us, ignore the internet, ignore whatever the journalists are telling you to do. Find what you're passionate about, what fucking makes you tick. Get it, build something cool. This is probably the guy that we would like to have as a friend. This is the guy that would like to hear his story. This is the guy that we would speak about. So try to go out there and do your thing. That is my last and final thing that I will say in this podcast.
I don't know that. I don't think I can add anything to this amazing conversation that we had. Eventually, I will leave you with a simple sentence, which is try to find what you really like and what you really love to do and do it. And if you are into cars because you like how they look, then you might be into something. And if you are into cars because you like a specific car, then absolutely whatever else doesn't matter. If you are into cars because you are looking for the ultimate possible performance on track, then your decision making can focus on other metrics, which is the most efficient, the fastest, whatever. And this is if you are honest with yourself and if you can find out what you really want, no matter what you will pick, you will be happy and satisfied. If on the other hand you are doing it for like a secondary reason, such as you want to prove that you are faster than, or you want to prove that you are cooler than, or you want to prove that you are richer than, then you will, I can guarantee you, you will be disappointed no matter what you get.
Eternally unhappy.
Even if you get a GT2 RS, Mantai kit, Weissach pack, whatever, if you buy it for the wrong reason, it's not gonna do anything for you. And I think on this note, thank you very much for watching and listening, and I will see you next Tuesday.